I've spent most of my life being the quiet daughter, the one who followed every rule, wore the right clothes, and kept the secrets of the big house locked away in Los Angeles. But tonight, the silence ends. My sister Jana just called me from Nebraska, and what she told me has changed everything. My father, Bob, has done the unthinkable. He hasn't just sent a letter. He has issued a final legal notice against Jana for giving our mother, Michelle, a place to hide. He calls it interference. I call it a desperate attempt to control a family that has already found the exit door. And it's not just about mom. Our legal team, led by my brother in law, Derek, has finally cracked the code on the 20 or a million ministry audit. The numbers don't lie. While we were taught to live on faith, a fortune was being moved into the shadows. Tonight, I'm showing you the documents my father never wanted us to see. Over the next hour, I'm taking you through 15 segments of this downfall, from the secret midnight run to Nebraska to the private texts that sparked this revolution. And the moment I realized my father's umbrella was actually a cage, the Duggar empire is crumbling. And for the first time, we are the ones telling the story. Stay with me. The truth is finally out. It was nearly midnight in Los Angeles when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. In our family, a late night call usually means one of two things: a new baby is arriving or a new crisis is unfolding. When I saw Jana's name on the screen, my heart skipped. Jana doesn't call late unless the world is shifting. Jinger, she whispered, and I could hear the Nebraska wind howling in the background. She's here. Mom is actually here. But Jinger, the letters have already started arriving. Dad found out where we are. That conversation lasted for hours. And it's a conversation that will haunt me forever. Jana described the moment my mother, Michelle, walked through her door in Nebraska. She didn't have the suitcases you'd expect for a woman who lived in the same house for 40 years. She had a few bags, a tired smile, and eyes that looked like they were seeing the sun for the very first time. But the peace was short-lived. Within 48 hours of Mom's arrival, a courier arrived at Jana's farmhouse. It wasn't a letter of reconciliation. It wasn't a father asking his daughter to bring his wife home for a talk. It was a formal, cold, and calculated legal notice from my father's attorneys in Arkansas. As Jana read the words to me over the phone, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the LA air. My father was accusing Jana of unlawful interference with his marriage. He was claiming that by giving our mother a place to sleep, Jana was violating the spiritual and legal sanctity of the Duggar household, but we knew what it really was. It was a threat. It was his way of saying, if I can't control your heart, I will use the law to break your spirit. Jana told me she stood there on her porch holding that paper, looking out at the vast Nebraska fields, and she realized the umbrella of protection we were promised as children was actually a shadow. For the first time, she didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She looked at our mother, who was finally sleeping peacefully in the guest room, and she told me, Jinger, I'm not running anymore. If he wants a war, he can have it. But he's not taking her back to that cage. That phone call was the spark. It was the moment the Duggar sisters stopped being victims and started being a united front. We realized that our father's power only existed as long as we remained silent. And that night, under the pale light of a Nebraska moon, the silence didn't just break. It shattered. While the world saw our family as a humble ministry living on faith, behind the scenes, there was a complex web of numbers that never seemed to add up. For years, anytime we asked about the money we earned from the show, we were met with the same spiritual redirection. It's all being reinvested for the kingdom. But thanks to my brother in law, Derek Dillard, we finally stopped taking my father's for it and started looking at the records. Derek spent months working with a team of forensic accountants, digging through decades of tax filings, real estate transfers, and shell corporations. What they found wasn't just mismanagement. It was a systematic or 20 million deception. As I sat in our living room in LA, looking at the digital files Derek sent over, I felt a sick knot in my stomach. The audit revealed that while we were being told to save our pennies, and buy used clothes to honor God, millions of dollars were being diverted into private trusts and LLCs that none of the children had access to. We found accounts titled under ministry, names that were actually personal piggy banks for my father's real estate ventures. The most heartbreaking discovery was seeing the contracts from the early seasons of our show. We were children working around the clock while our father was signing away our financial futures to build his own empire. Derek pointed out one specific transaction, a $2 million transfer made just weeks after Josh's scandal first broke. It was moved into a legal defense fund hidden under a charitable label. My father used the money we earned as a family to protect the person who caused our family the most pain, all while keeping the rest of us on a tight financial leash. when we confronted the estate's lawyers with these findings, they didn't offer an explanation. They offered more NDAs. They tried to buy our silence with a fraction of what was actually stolen. But seeing the paper trail changed everything for us. It proved that the umbrella of protection wasn't just about spiritual control. It was a financial barrier designed to keep us dependent. The audit is more than just numbers. It's the proof that the man we called Dad was running a business where his children were the only ones not getting paid. The $20 million isn't just missing, it was taken from our lives, our futures, and our trust. When my mother stepped across the threshold of Jana's home in Nebraska, she wasn't just entering a house, she was entering a different world. For over 40 years, Michelle Duggar's life was a series of joyful performances governed by a schedule that never belonged to her. But in those first 40 to 8 hours of freedom, the performance finally stopped. Jana told me that for the first few hours, Mom just sat by the window, looking out at the open fields. There were no cameras, no production assistants, and no Jim Bob asking her to recite a verse or give a smile for the brand. Jana said the silence in the house was almost heavy at first because my mother didn't know how to exist in a space where nothing was expected of her. On that first morning, Mom woke up at 6:00 a.m. out of habit. She started to head toward the kitchen to begin the massive meal prep she had done for decades. But Jana stopped her. Jana told her, "Mom, there are no crowds to feed. It's just us. Sit down." Jana said my mother's hands were shaking as she held a cup of coffee, something she usually only drank in a hurry between chores. She spent 3 hours just watching the sunrise. She told Jana, "I forgot that the sun looks different when you aren't looking at it through a window of obligations." But the second day brought the reality of what she had left behind. As she began to unpack her small bag, she found a note my father had tucked into her Bible. It was a list of verses for a wayward wife. Even from hundreds of miles away, he was trying to use scripture as a leash. Jana saw Mom break down for the first time then. It wasn't just sadness. It was a realization of how deep the control went. However, instead of calling him back or apologizing, my mother did something I never thought I'd see. She took that note, walked over to Jana's fireplace, and watched it turn to ash. She turned to Jana and said, "I've spent 40 years being a mother to 19, but I don't know who Michelle is. I think it's time I find out." Those first 48 hours weren't about grand gestures. They were about the small, quiet acts of reclamation. Eating when she was hungry, sleeping when she was tired, and realizing that her worth wasn't tied to her submission. In Nebraska, the mother of 19 was gone. In her place was a woman who was finally learning how to breathe. As a child, I was taught that the law of the land was secondary to the law of the father. But as Jana read that formal document to me over the phone, I realized that when spiritual manipulation fails, my father has no problem using the very secular laws he once told us to fear. This wasn't just a letter from a concerned husband. It was a cold, calculated legal weapon drafted by some of the most aggressive attorneys in Arkansas. The notice was titled as a formal demand for marital restitution and cease of interference. It was filled with clinical, heartless language that turned our family dynamics into a courtroom battle. The document explicitly accused Jana of harboring my mother and conspiring to disrupt a legal marital union. It even went as far as to threaten a lawsuit for alienation of affection, a rare and controversial legal claim used to punish someone for destroying a marriage. But what made my blood run cold were the specific demands listed at the end. My father didn't just want mom back, he wanted her silence. The notice demanded that Jana and Michelle immediately cease all contact with outside financial investigators, meaning Derek and his audit team. It also demanded the surrender of any private family documents currently in Jana's possession in Nebraska. It became crystal clear this legal move wasn't about love or bringing a wife home. It was a panic-driven attempt to stop the 20 million audit from becoming public record. My father's lawyers even included a clause about brand protection, claiming that mom's departure was causing irreparable financial harm to the family's various LLCs and ministry image. They were literally putting a price tag on her presence. Jana told me that as she reached the last page. She saw my father's signature, not the dad who used to tuck us in, but the James R. Duggar, who views his family as a corporation. Exposing this notice is important because it shows the length a patriarch will go to when his umbrella starts to leak. He isn't fighting for his marriage. He is fighting for his monopoly on the truth. But this paper backfired. Instead of scaring Jana, it gave her the evidence she needed to show the world the difference between a family and a business. The notice is no longer a secret threat. It's a public testimony of his desperation. For the longest time, I didn't have a voice because I was taught that my voice was a sign of rebellion. In the world of the IBLP, the organization that dictated every breath our family took. We were told that God spoke directly through our Father, and our only job was total and prompt obedience. We were raised to believe that the world outside our umbrella of protection was a dark, dangerous place filled with divine judgment. But as I stand here today in Los Angeles, I realize that the most dangerous place I ever lived was under that very umbrella. The IBLP wasn't just a set of rules, it was a psychological cage. It taught us that our worth was tied to our modesty, our silence, and our ability to suppress our emotions. We were programmed to believe that any misfortune, even a financial audit or a family disagreement, was the result of a secret sin or a lack of submission. This is why the 20 million discovery was so earth-shattering for us. It proved that while we were being policed for every minor infraction, the leadership at the top was living by a completely different set of rules. Breaking away from the IBLP was the most painful thing I've ever done. It felt like I was tearing off my own skin. When I first started wearing pants or listening to music with a beat, I would literally tremble with fear, expecting lightning to strike. That is what a cult does to you. It makes you fear the very freedom God intended for you. My father's recent legal notice is just the IBLP's umbrella of protection manifested in a courtroom. It's the same old tactic. Use fear to maintain control, but something has changed. My mother, Michelle, spent 40 years as the face of this ideology. She was the virtuous woman that every IBLP girl was told to emulate. For her to walk away and seek refuge in Nebraska is the ultimate sign that the IBLP's grip has finally failed. We are no longer disconnecting from just a family. We are disconnecting from a system of spiritual abuse that uses the Bible as a weapon of control. We are finding a faith that is built on grace, not on fear. My father still calls us deceived. But when I look at Jana's peace and my mother's new life, I know we aren't the ones living in a lie. The chains are broken and the IBLP no longer has power over the Duggar sisters. For decades, our communication was monitored, whether it was through accountability partners or the ever-present eyes of the production crew. We never truly had a private space to share our fears. But as we grew up and moved away, technology gave us something our father couldn't control: a secret group chat. It started as a way to share baby photos, but it quickly evolved into the headquarters of our rebellion. In this segment, I want to pull back the curtain on those private conversations. For the last few months, that chat has been buzzing 24/7. When Jana first made the decision to help Mom leave, she didn't just do it alone. She had a digital army of sisters behind her. We were all there, typing in real time, giving her the courage to pack those bags. I remember Jill texting, "Don't look back. Jana, we've got you." And Derek chiming in with legal advice on how to avoid being followed. The most intense moment in the chat happened the night Jim Bob's legal notice arrived in Nebraska. Jana posted a photo of the document, and for a few minutes, the chat went silent. We were all in shock, but then the resolve kicked in. We realized that this wasn't just Jana's fight or Mom's fight. It was a fight for the future of every Duggar daughter. We've used this space to compare notes on the 20 million audit too. One sister would remember a specific filming day, and another would find a corresponding gap in the financial records Derek was uncovering. It's where we've processed our trauma, shared our therapy breakthroughs, and planned our next moves. My father always thought that by keeping us under one roof, he could keep us unified under his rule. He didn't realize that by pushing us away, he created a network of independent women who are more united than ever. He might have the lawyers and the big house in Arkansas, but we have the truth in each other. The group chat isn't just a place for messages. It's the heartbeat of our new life. It's where we learned that we don't need an umbrella when we have each other's hands to hold through the storm. Through the storm. When people look at old clips of our show, they see a big, happy family in matching outfits, smiling for the cameras. But what they didn't see was the red light of the camera lens that followed us everywhere, even into our most private moments of grief and confusion. We weren't just a family, we were a production. And in that production, our feelings were secondary to the storyline. Growing up in the spotlight meant that we never truly had a childhood. Every milestone, every birthday, and even every mistake was captured, edited, and sold. I remember being a young girl and feeling a constant pressure to perform. If I was sad or frustrated, I was told to pray about it and put on a smile because the film crew was arriving in 10 minutes. We were taught that our primary purpose was to be a positive advertisement for our father's beliefs. The trauma of being a child star in a reality TV empire is something I'm still processing in therapy today. We didn't have the right to say no to a scene. We didn't have the right to privacy in our own bedrooms. The cameras were a constant reminder that we belonged to the public and to our father's brand. But Bill Gothard started, but never to ourselves. The most painful part was realizing that while we were giving our lives to the show, we were being exploited. We were the stars, but we were treated like unpaid interns in our own lives. That spotlight didn't protect us. It exposed us. It made us targets. And it made it impossible to heal from the things happening behind closed doors because we always had to maintain the illusion of perfection. Today, when I see my father trying to use the media and legal notices to pull us back, I see that same director mindset. He wants us back in the frame under his light, but the cameras have stopped rolling for us. We are finally living in the shadows of privacy, and it is the most beautiful thing I have ever experienced. We are no longer characters in a script. We are human beings with our own stories to tell. Growing up, we were taught that money was a tool for ministry, but we didn't realize it was also the lock on our cage. For years, as we filmed, season after season of 19 Kids and Counting, we never saw a paycheck. We didn't have bank accounts. We didn't have credit cards. And we certainly didn't have any idea of the massive revenue our lives were generating for my father's production entity. We were told that by working for the family, we were building treasures in heaven, while in reality, our father was building a very earthly empire in Arkansas. The financial cage was designed to keep us dependent. If we wanted to buy something as simple as a new dress or a book, we had to ask for permission. Even after some of us got married, the control didn't stop. The properties we lived in were often owned by family LLCs, meaning if we stepped out of line or questioned the IBLP teachings, we risked losing our homes. It was a brilliant, albeit cruel, system of compliance through currency. When Derek began the audit, he discovered that the contracts we signed as young adults were designed to sign away our rights to any past or future earnings from the show. We were effectively volunteers in a multi-million-dollar business. This is why the 20 million discovery is so vital to our story. It represents the freedom we were denied every time we were told to trust God for our daily needs. There was a massive surplus being hidden away. Money that could have given us education, independence, and a safety net. In Nebraska, Jana is finally experiencing what it's like to manage her own life without looking for a signature of approval. But the legal notice my father sent is a direct attempt to rebuild that financial cage. He's claiming that our rebellion is damaging the family assets. It's the same old tactic, equating his bank account with God's will. But we've learned that true security doesn't come from a family trust fund. It comes from the truth. I mean, we may have lost the millions he kept from us, but we've gained something he can't buy: our autonomy. Oh, while we are finding peace, the atmosphere at the big house in Tontat Town is anything but peaceful. My father has turned his office into what we call a war room. He is surrounded by a small circle of loyalists and high-priced attorneys who are helping him craft a narrative where he is the victim of a godless rebellion. He truly believes that by protecting the family's assets and secrets, he is doing God's work. But in reality, he is just trying to save a crumbling empire. Every legal notice and every public statement is carefully orchestrated to keep the remaining children in line and to guilt us into returning to the fold. In Nebraska, the air is different. Jana tells me that for the first time, she doesn't feel like a manager of a household. She feels like a woman with a future. She has been helping Mom navigate the simple things: getting a personal phone, opening a private bank account, and even choosing what she wants to eat. This sanctuary isn't just a house. It's a healing center. Jana has turned the farmhouse into a place where truth is valued more than appearance. My father's lawyers call it interference, but we call it sisterly love. One thing my father never expected was that our husbands would stand by us instead of him. In the IBLP, the husband is supposed to be part of the chain of command. But Jeremy and Derek have broken that chain. They've formed their own alliance to protect us. Derek handles the legal and financial investigation, while Jeremy provides the theological clarity to counter my father's spiritual manipulation. This isn't just the daughter's rebellion. It's a family-wide rejection of a toxic system. The Duggar brand was built on media, and now it's trying to survive through it. My father's team is constantly trying to leak old photos of us together to make it seem like everything is fine. They use the family ministry's social media to post about forgiveness and honoring parents, but they never mention the 20 million or the legal threats. It's a masterclass in PR spin. But the public is waking up. People are realizing that a ministry that uses lawyers to threaten its own children isn't a ministry. It's a business. Recovery isn't a straight line. There are days when I wake up in LA feeling overwhelmed by the guilt my father tried to plant in me. That's why therapy has been so vital. For the first time, we are allowed to say, this was wrong. We are learning that setting boundaries isn't a sin, it's a necessity for survival. Jana and Mom are even looking into counselors in Nebraska who specialize in religious trauma. We are finally healing the wounds that we weren't even allowed to admit we had. If I could speak to my father one last time without lawyers involved, I would tell him, Dad, we aren't your enemies. The truth is, we don't want your money and we don't want your empire. We just want our mother to be free and our sisters to be safe. You taught us to value the truth, and that is exactly what we are doing. You can keep the big house, but you've lost the home that lived inside it. The legal notices won't bring us back. They only prove why we had to leave. The Duggar empire may be falling, but the Duggar women are finally standing tall. We are building a new legacy, one that isn't filmed for a TV audience or managed by a patriarch. A legacy of honesty, autonomy, and real faith. To everyone who has followed our story, thank you for standing with us. This isn't just the end of a reality show. It's the beginning of our real lives. The sun is setting on the Tontatown compound, but it's rising over Nebraska, LA, and everywhere else we've found our freedom. We are finally home